My computer clock says that it's now 2:15, so I'll go ahead and get started. I apologize in advance. I am feeling a bit under the weather today, and I'm trying to ride through it on caffeine. So I may talk very fast, which is also my default state, or not make sense, which might also be my default state, but I hope that it's not as bad as I feel a little shaky right now. So if I don't make sense, just stop me, slow down, ask me to repeat, totally fine. I might turn off my mic to sneeze or cough, or hopefully I will avoid doing that on the speaker and everyone hears. So the title of the session is Drupal 8.2.0 coming soon. It's not going to be a full session. I just have a little bit of content that I'll share with you. Hopefully it won't take too long and have some time for question and answer. If anyone has any questions about Drupal 8 or anything really, I can try to answer them, or if I don't know the answer, share with you how I would try to find the answer to the question, which is sometimes more interesting. My name is Jess. I'm a native Madisonian. I grew up in Madison. My parents went to university here at WI as well. I worked at the Department of Family Medicine here on campus until early 2013. And since then I work for a company called Acquia, which is based out in Boston but has a lot of remote employees all over the country. And my username on Drupal.org is XJM, and on Twitter I am XJMDrupal because someone named Zav has had XJM since before I knew that Twitter was a thing that I needed to use. So don't follow @XJM on Twitter because they've made 3 tweets in like 5 years. It's XJMDrupal. So I mentioned that I work for Acquia, but I don't actually work with Acquia's products. If you have questions for me about your Acquia hosting, I won't be able to answer them or help you with them at all, unfortunately. You're better off talking, if you do have, if you're interested in that, you're better off talking to one of the many technical account managers, sales reps, and so forth. That over here would be a much better option. I work in the office of the CTO. The CTO at Acquia is Dries, who is the Drupal project lead. So it basically means the Drupal project lead is my boss, and my job is all focused around the Drupal core projects and interacting with the Drupal community. So it's a pretty cool job to have. I get paid full time. And since last year, my role in the project has been that I'm one of the 2 release managers for Drupal 8. So what that means is I'm one of 2 people who, how many of you have Drupal sites? Actually, I should probably ask this first, like, who here is like evaluating Drupal but not really built a Drupal site before? Anyone? Cool. Welcome. Who here has a Drupal 8 site already, or a Drupal 7 site, as used previously? Cool. All right, so if you do have a Drupal 8 site, you probably get prompted about once a month or so that there's an update available and you should download and install it as soon as possible. If your site is Drupal 8, I'm the person that causes that to happen for you. I am responsible for making sure that the Drupal 8 patch releases come out every month. If there's a security update, I'm responsible for making sure that happens. I don't do the work a lot. Most of the fixes that you get in your bug fix releases are not my work, but I am responsible for making sure the releases are all pulled together, happen on a fixed schedule, and so forth. And in that role, I'm also one of 6 people who can accept changes to the Drupal core project for Drupal 8. So Drupal is an open source project. Anyone in this room can file an issue, create a patch. If there's a bug that you encounter, you can be like, hey, this is a bug, and then if you try to fix it on your own, you can post patch the issue, and that change can be accepted to Drupal core. There's a review process that we have, and then eventually, once your patch is set to go, you work with someone else out there in the world who reviews it for you. That creates a queue of issues that are reviewed and tested by the community. And that queue of issues is what the 6 core committers look at to decide what gets into Drupal core, what version it's going to, or whether it needs to be changed to meet our quality standards, so on and so forth. So I have a couple of screenshots up there. If you ever see the little T letters with this XJM, either on the Drupal.org project page or on the release announcements, that's me. Yes, it still works. All right. So historically, there's a number of pain points with the Drupal project. And Joe talked about some of them this morning in the keynote. But I think that there are 2 big pain points with Drupal that have been real problems with people and have been reasons not to adopt Drupal that Joe didn't get to. I think one of the biggest things that has been for people who take a long view, a problem with Drupal is that updating between major releases is hard. It is a lot of work to go from Drupal 5 to Drupal 6, Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, etc. And another big problem is that it was always kind of this big mystery when the next release of Drupal was coming out. And so people would be like, well, so should I build my site on Drupal 7 now? I hear that Drupal 8 is open, it's 2013, they keep talking about maybe it'll be released soon, and should I wait for Drupal 8? Created a lot of uncertainty, made developers waste a lot of time, and not really, if you're running a business, if you work for a university department, this isn't a really effective way to plan the future of what you're going to do with your website. So these things were done for good reasons. One of the ways that Drupal is sort of differentiated from other open source content management systems, like WordPress, for example, is we have the philosophy in the project that we're going to make big, bold innovations. We're not tied to the past. We're going to do cool new things whenever we can. And there's an expression for this in Drupal, which is the drop is always moving. I think I say that. But the problem with that is it also became, it's a reason to use Drupal, but it also became for a lot of people a reason not to use Drupal. So in the Drupal 8 cycle, we tried to fix this problem by adopting what's called semantic versioning. Is anyone familiar with the semantic versioning standard? How semantic versioning works is that there's 3 different types of release. There's the major release, which is devoted by the big version number, Drupal 8, Drupal 7, Drupal 6, for example. Then there's a minor release, which is the second number, and then there's a patch release. So for example, the current Drupal release number in production for Drupal 8 is Drupal 8.1.7. So the major release is Drupal 8, minor release is 1, and patch release is 7. And what this means is that for the entirety of the major release cycle, we keep backward compatibility, which means that if you develop a website on Drupal 8, if you develop a module, a theme, the idea is that that module or theme should not break for the entirety of the Drupal 8 release cycle. Minor version number means that's where we're going to add new features. So you can add, sometimes adding code can conflict. It's possible to add code that would have a conflict with something else. It's possible that additions might not work out with the custom code on your site, but now you can plan for those small disruptions every 6 months, scheduled with our minor release cycle. And then the patch release is what we deliver every single month on a schedule. It contains pretty much only bug fixes, so you don't ever have to worry about any disruptions. When there's a security release that comes up, you can just update that right away and have a fair amount of confidence that your existing website's not perfect. So this diagram here illustrates the schedule that we have for the Drupal 8 release cycle. Like I said, minor versions with new features, new APIs, cool new stuff every 6 months, but still retaining backward compatibility for your existing sites, modules, and themes, and so forth. And right now, this diagram is a little bit off, but you can see here the release date for, I think I have this on the next slide too. So you can see 6-month release schedule. The release date for Drupal 8.0.0 was November 19th, 2015. So this came out just at the end of last year. And also fun, by the way, November 19th is also the project lead's birthday. Dries did not pick this himself. It turned out when we were creating the Drupal 8 release that the release window, it just happened that we thought was the soonest we could ship Drupal 8 was November 18th. Dries' birthday was a day later, so we got together and we're like, oh, it'll be a birthday present for Dries, and this will be lovely and fun. But then everyone now thinks that Dries picked that himself, and so it's like, you're so arrogant, you put release Drupal on your own birthday window. That shouldn't happen, but sometimes trying to be nice backfires. But that's why it was released on that date instead of November 18th. Drupal 8.1.0, which was our first ever minor release, came out on April 20th. And right now we're working on developing Drupal 8.2.0. That date is wrong. It should not say October 20th. It should say October 5th. So I will fix that slide later. But the beta begins next week. So right now we're just in the process of we've added most of the new features to 8.2 that are going to be available. Some of them are like on the edge, almost ready, might get in the next month. There'll be a month of beta where we sort of stabilize those new features, a month of a release candidate, and then on October 5th, not the 20th, we'll deliver a new feature release. So I'm not going to talk about the cool new things that are in Drupal 8 but not Drupal 7. There's lots and lots of resources where you can learn what those are. Drupal has all kinds of awesome training that's available. There's websites that are pages on Drupal.org that list some of the new functionalities. I think you can actually just go to Drupal.org/8, just the numeral 8, and that will give you an overview of a lot of the exciting features that are in Drupal 8, but not in Drupal 7. But I will talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming in Drupal 8.2 that weren't available in 8.1. So a couple of these things say maybe. As I mentioned, we're working up toward the beta. We're not there yet, so these are things that we hope will land that are almost ready, but we can't be 100% sure that they'll be committed. The one experimental feature that we're hoping to add is a content moderation module. So right in Drupal core, pretty much you have two options. Your content can be unpublished and published, and there's no real way to manage a content publishing workflow. We're trying to add an experimental module so that you can do that in core in Drupal 8.2. Another feature we're trying to add is a sidebar that allows you to configure stuff in the page without leaving the page, which sounds like a really sensible and simple thing, but it's actually something that from a usability standpoint, Drupal struggled with for a while. So for example, if you have a block, which is the chunk of content that Drupal puts content together on pages, right now if you want to place a block, you have to go to a specific admin page. And then you have to look through a big long list, and then you press a button. And then you get a module that has another big long list, and you have to read through the big long list, try to figure out what the thing you want is. And then you have to go back and remember, and then you have to configure it to try to decide what page. By the time you've gone through this whole process of 3 or 4 steps of multi-form, you might not even remember where you were trying to put the chunk of content in the first place. This new experimental sidebar will let you do things like that. There's actually already an experimental module in core that lets you just see big ugly yellow bars that show you where the regions are on your page. But you can now just, if you turn that module on, click in that spot, put the block right there. And then this experimental sidebar that we want to add after that will allow you then to click on that block and even configure it again, instead of having to go through that 4-step form, configure it right there on the page where you were, hopefully. There's more complete migrations from Drupal 6 and 7. I'll talk more about that in a second. And lots of little usability fixes, improvements to user interface text, fixes to layouts, form elements, stuff like that. A lot of API improvements for REST, which is a big feature in Drupal 8 that was added, but turns out there were some bugs that made it difficult to use. That's a lot better in Drupal 8.2. And there's also lots more stuff that you can read in the release notes, lots of small improvements for developers and so forth. So it's very easy to update to Drupal 8.2 if you're already on Drupal 8. You just do it the exact same way you would update to any path release. Either type drush up, or if you don't use drush, drop the code in place, as you might have heard in Nate's session if you were in here earlier. Make sure to remove your top-level files, extract the new archive there, copy your custom configured, is that a word? Configured htaccess, etc. files back, and then just run the database upgrade. But if you're on Drupal 7 or Drupal 6, you used to do things the same way using that same script, but it turns out that's really not a safe way to do things because you can't go backward. And it's actually very difficult. When people are building a new site, it actually takes time. Funny, you can't just magically convert everything to the new site. So instead, to make it safer and easier to do upgrades from older major versions to the new major versions, instead of using that same script in place, we added the migrate module to Drupal core. So what that lets you do is you can build out a new Drupal 8 site, have your Drupal 6 or 7 site still in production, and then you just, on the Drupal 8 site, run a migration that sucks in all of your content and configuration from the old site, puts it together on the new site. You can then, on the new site that's under development, work on create your new theme for Drupal 8, tweak things, maybe do some re-architecture since you have this opportunity to rethink how your site is built, while the Drupal 6 or 7 site is still in production without putting any of the data on that site at risk. So that's the new, it was best practice for a long time in the community, but now we've made it official in core. And Drupal 7, I should note, is still supported. Drupal 7 will still be supported for several more years. So if you already have a Drupal 7 site, don't worry at all. You're in a totally good spot. Drupal 7 is robust, reliable, has 5+ years now of use. So there's like 1 million Drupal 7 sites, I think, that report to Drupal.org. However, if you're on Drupal 6 is not supported. And what that means is that if there are security issues discovered with Drupal 6, you're not guaranteed to get fixes for those. They might be disclosed out in the public and exploitable, depending on whether someone else creates a fix for it and supplies it. There's no bug fix releases anymore for Drupal 6. If you are on Drupal 6, you should probably plan to move off of it as soon as possible. But the cool thing about it is that used to be to get from Drupal 6 to Drupal 8, you'd have to migrate to Drupal 7 first in between. The cool thing about migrate is that you can now skip directly from Drupal 6 to Drupal 8 without that intermediate step. So you just start, install Drupal 8 now and then try a migration from Drupal 6 and see what happens. So one of the things that I get asked a lot is, well, so I hear about Drupal 8 and I hear it's cool, but my department doesn't have a lot of money. We have 3 staff members, and I'm responsible for not only the website but also answering support questions from the faculty and et cetera, et cetera. So it's important to be able to have a good sense of whether it's going to be efficient and to migrate to Drupal 8 if you have an existing site. I would say that 2 years ago I did a presentation at DrupalCamp Wisconsin, and lots of cautionary tales about why people shouldn't move to Drupal 8, but now it's been released for almost a year. It's stable, it's reliable. There's 100,000 or so sites using Drupal 8 that are reporting to Drupal.org. Not just blogs, either. There's really, really big sites out on the internet that are using Drupal 8, and it's working well. Most of the contributed projects that you want, contributed modules and themes that were very important in Drupal 7 have something, maybe not a stable release, but at least something that's usable, that's available on Drupal.org. And even some of the major ones, like Views, for example, are already in core. WYSIWYG is in core. So if you used those projects in Drupal 7, you don't even need to look for that project in Drupal 8. It's in core already, so don't worry about it. The one big gotcha, I would say, is that there is not a complete version of the web form module for Drupal 8. So if you have an existing site that has a lot of web forms, and you rely on the web form module for those web forms, you might run into more problems upgrading, and you need to reconsider how to do that instead. We're going to try to solve that problem. There's an initiative to supply basic web forms in core in Drupal 8, but that's down the road. That won't be in 8.2. It might be available in 8.3 or something. But in the meanwhile, you have to make some choices about how to do those web forms instead. I do have a couple of links up here that are really, really useful if you do have an existing Drupal site. The first link, drupal.org/project/contrib_tracker. It isn't actually a module or anything. It's just a project with an issue queue that has magical statuses that will tell you how ready a project is for Drupal 8. And there's a Kanban board that you can look at that will show you, this is ready and stable, and this is, has a release candidate, and this is in beta, and this needs more work, not really quite ready yet, but you can try it. This doesn't have a project at all. A lot of useful information in there, and the cool thing about it is because it's a Drupal.org issue tracker, you can also go in and just add your own module that you care about if it's not in the queue already, and find out what the status of it is, or even, update the information and say, hey, I looked over here, the maintainer has a Drupal 8 thing, but they need help with X, and so it's a way for people to share information. And then the second link, drupal.org/project/upgrade_status. This is a project that you can install on your Drupal 7 site or your Drupal 6 site, although 6 is not supported, so the 6 release is unpublished, but you can still get it from the Git repository. You install that module on your Drupal 7 site, and then it will give you, as a tab on your updates page, it will give you a tab that shows you all of the stats for Drupal 8 of all these different modules. So you can look and see, oh, this one says it's in core, this one's ready, this one's not available yet. That one's also, doesn't have all the information in the world. If your module's missing, then you can file an issue in the queue to find out what the status of that is. The second big thing I really want to you might want to take into account when you're deciding if you want to move to Drupal 8 is that upgrading custom modules and themes will take a lot of work. The APIs that Drupal 8 has are very different from what was available in Drupal 7. The user experience on the front end is the same but better, more polished, but the back end is very, very different. Similarly, we have an entirely new theming system in Drupal 8, so your old PHP template themes that you might have developed for a Drupal 7 site aren't going to work at all, have to start over. And the big thing that you want to keep in mind there is it's much easier if you use a base theme. If you had a base theme in Drupal 7 that was available in Contrib, it's going to be a lot easier to rebuild that, but you're still going to have to redo it in Drupal 8. And if you didn't use a base theme on your Drupal 7 site, use one this time. On the version of the site. And then this next link here, drupal.org/project/Drupal module upgrader, all one word. That's a tool that will help update your modules. It will magically try to update your modules for you, and then give you lists of documentation of things that need to be changed. Pretty handy if you do have custom modules that are running on Drupal 6 or Drupal 7 site mostly that need to be updated. And in short, if you're building a new site, build it on Drupal 8. No reason not to anymore. If you're on Drupal 6, migrate directly to Drupal 8 as soon as possible. And if you're on Drupal 7, do it when it fits for you. If there's a feature that's coming out of Drupal 8 that you're like, hey, that would be really useful for my Drupal 7 site, maybe that's the time to consider migrating. But there's also probably a way to do that with a contributed project in Drupal 7 as well, so you're also good for many more years there. And that's all the content I had. So, does anyone have any questions about anything related to Drupal 8 I can answer? Yeah?
It's probably a stupid question, but you just mentioned just a second ago the importance of having a base theme when you migrate. Is that
So just to repeat the question, John said, you just mentioned the importance of having a base theme when you migrate. I would say, in general, having a base theme is a good strategy to make sure that it's easier to update your theme for anything. You can, there's two base themes in core that you can extend for, Classy and Stable. Classy is a base theme that provides divs and classes and so forth that you can easily customize. Stable is a base theme that doesn't have all of those classes and markup, but provides basic markup and templates that are guaranteed not to change during the Drupal 8 release cycle. So if you extend from that theme, build on top of it, you can be fairly confident that your themes will work well from minor to minor. If you don't extend from one of those base themes and just rely on the markup and CSS that's coming out of core directly, you're more likely to run into a problem where if we fix one bug with the CSS somewhere, that might break something in your theme. So that's the first reason it's important in Drupal 8, is the concept of BC for themes didn't actually even really exist in Drupal 7, it does now. That's one reason in Drupal 8 extending from one of those base themes is good. But then on top of that, there are additionally base themes in Contrib, Omega, for example, that provide you with a more flexible set of templates, classes, and so forth that are actually intended to be extended. And so if you do that, for example, I built, when I built sites for the University of Wisconsin's Department of Family Medicine, I used Zen as base theme. And what that meant was that I just had to take the existing CSS that was provided by Zen, make small modifications to it so that it should make it look like what I wanted it to. And then Zen took care of when I had to update from Drupal 5 to Drupal 6 in that case. Most of the work was already done for me, and I was just able to just take the stuff that I'd already done, built on top of Zen for my sub-theme, extend that up. Is that kind of what you were getting at?
Yeah. Yeah, the answer to the question. Thank you.
So definitely at least use one of core's base themes, and consider a Contrib base theme which extends from a core base theme.
I think for reference too, for anybody that's starting, if you're creating a theme for Drupal 8, you're actually by default extending the stable base theme. You actually have to explicitly say not to use stable, or it'll use it by default.
That's cool, I did not know that. So what Joe said is that if you create a theme in Drupal 8, it will by default assume that stable is supposed to be your base theme, and you have to explicitly tell it not to, which is good because that helps you do the right thing.
In 7 and earlier, wasn't all this called parent and child themes?
Theme and sub-theme and sub-sub-theme, I think different terminology. So
this
same
is
thing.
kind of a little bit new.
Base theme, sub-theme.
This is something new just for Drupal 8.
No, it's the same idea of having theme inheritance exists in Drupal 7 and Drupal 6. But in Drupal 8, what we did is we formalized the structure in core so that core provides stable base themes in the past. So for example, the themes that are in core, in the themes that you are user-facing and admin-facing in Drupal 7. Same things in Drupal 8. The Bardic theme is the theme that when you download Drupal for the first time, you see that pretty radiated blue header and the little tabs and stuff. That's Bardic. And then 7, also built in Drupal 7, is the administrative theme. If you go to like admin/content, you'll see that theme. Those same themes are in Drupal 8, but now instead of extending directly from the core classes and markup, they extend from, in the case of both, they extend from the class and case names. Questions?
Yeah, I believe WordPress has, you can set it up so it automatically runs updates, so you can kind of just leave it alone and it stays up to date. But it sounds like Drupal, you have to actually, oh, there's an update, I gotta, get it updated.
Thank you for asking this question. I was hoping someone would ask this question.
Okay.
So the question was, WordPress, you can configure it to automatically update for you and never have to worry about it again, ideally, in theory. And in Drupal, it seems like you can't do that. Is that correct? The answer is yes, currently. You need to manually go in and update each Drupal release. In most cases, it's just a matter of if you use Drush, which is a tool that's very helpful for Drupal sites. Recommend using it if you don't yet. It's just a matter of typing a one-line command and done. If you have a more sophisticated deployment workflow, you just build the Drush command to update the site into your deployment workflow and done. It's usually safe and easy, but there still does need to be a human being or very, very smart AI taking care of that for you. And this is an ongoing discussion in the Drupal community for a very long time. The reason that we have not supported automatic updates historically is that in order for something on the internet to be able to update code on your computer, you have to give permission to something else to make changes to the files on your web server. And the security, like Drupal has very, very strong security mindset, so it encourages people to do things that are not safe practice, and so historically there's been a lot of pushback against doing it for that reason. Another problem with it is that, unlike Chrome, for example, or any browser nowadays, where Drupal isn't an application, it's a thing people build applications with. So historically we wanted to give people control to decide whether to go to the next version or not. For example, forcing someone to update to a new minor release automatically could be a problem, because if it turns, you can make API additions in minor releases, and if it turns out you happen to have a subclass of this one class that happen to have that exact same method name, and then the minor release automatically got pushed out to your site, all of a sudden there'd be a fatal error running on your website, and you didn't have control over when that happened. The compromise that the current community is currently talking about is doing, at least starting with automated updates for highly critical security updates, seeing if we can do that in a safe way, and then possibly optionally extend that functionality to other things. There is an issue probably on my Drupal.org dashboard. I mean, actually, you can see if I can find it here. Let me type it in. There we go. Surprising, it's usually in the top 10 here of the issues that I'm following. Really? Here we go. Right there, it was updated an hour and 16 minutes ago. The issue has 95 followers. This is the whole story of the history of this issue. Blah, 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 on we go. This is in the past month, all this long essays by lots of people, important discussions. This is all the people who have commented on this issue. There are a total of 133 comments. If you're interested in this feature for Drupal 8, you can follow this issue.
Just read this.
Yeah, just read this one. But this is something I care about pretty strongly, and I think it is the next step for Drupal. I think it's a very important feature that will remove that next chunk of pain for a lot of people. But TLDR in the short term. But the cool thing about it is that the releases can't just happen at any random time. They are on fixed release windows. There's security releases on the third Wednesday of every month. There's bug fix releases on the first Wednesday of every month. the minor releases are scheduled well in advance, a year in advance, you can find out when the minor release is going to be. And so you can plan ahead for it. So even though it doesn't happen for you automatically, the person needs to like try the app and test it. Can just plan that on the second Wednesday of every month, block aside 2 hours in case there's a security release that comes out, so that you can make sure the security release is deployed safely.
I just had an idea, but you talk about if I'm writing custom modules, they end up having the same name as something you're adding in the next release. Maybe there's some kind of best practices we can build up, so custom modules always start with a CU or something that's sort of always be different.
So that's actually, it's not quite what I was saying. So the question was, are there best practices that we can use to reduce the risk that our custom modules will have naming collisions with new things that are added to core? So for example, if you happen to you are a tobacco connoisseur or a big fan of Sherlock Holmes, and so you called a module that's just a module that puts together glue code for your site, Big Pipe. We added a Big Pipe module in Drupal 8.1, which would then, you'd have a conflict where you had 2 modules doing different things that had the same name. That, in terms of the moduling itself, we don't have a great solution for that. A lot of people do make one project and then use submodules of that module, but the chances of running into a collision with a core module are fairly low. There's only a handful of those that get added every release. The bigger risk actually is, in the core API we provide base classes. There's interfaces and base classes that you can use and extend in your own module's code. And but when you create a subclass of those in any module, the API is coming, so your class will be named with the name of your module in its namespace, which makes that's actually a big difference in Drupal 8 and Drupal 7, is in Drupal 7, we namespace things with underscores, so it was always, your thing should be called your module name, underscore this, underscore that, etc., which isn't really a safe process because, for example, say you have an admin module and an admin underscore menu module, and there's a hook underscore menu. This is an actual thing that was a huge problem, is that there have been collisions. In Drupal 8, that's not a problem as much, because we use a standard called PSR4, PHP, I forget what PSNR stands for, but it's an interoperability standard that defines how classes, the folder that you put the class in and what the correct way to name it is using PHP 5.3's namespacing feature. So for the object-based part of Core's API, the namespacing isn't a problem. But what could be a problem is if you have a block and you're extending the block base class, and then we add a method to the block interface because API additions are allowed, but then you happen to have that same method on your custom block, then you run into a fatal error. And so by only rolling out those additions in minor versions, we give people time to sort of collect them, prepare for them, so there's a few small changes that you need to make. It's not that common though. In terms of best practices for naming modules, I know that a lot of people do put a prefix at the beginning of their modules, so it's namespace the module name. But that's a problem that as Drupal 8 moves toward best practices in Drupal 9 will resolve, but I think Drupal 8 is still a little bit of risk there. Anyone else have any ideas, suggestions about practices for avoiding collisions with modules that you've used on sites and stuff? I haven't actually worked on a lot of these projects, so. Anyone else?
I would have said the same thing, just for a custom module for a site, I would often do example com underscore name module. Just making sure that I'm never going to conflict with, not never, but very unlikely going to conflict with core or a contributed module for that matter.
I think I saw someone raise their hand,
I work for a city organization. So all custom module that we create, we maybe have use city as a prefix and then
Yeah, so basically the same thing. Maybe, what was the first part you said? City?
city underscore helper, or if we want to remove anything with forms, we maybe city underscore forms.
So for the city of Madison, adding a prefix with city underscore and then whatever cat card thing. Send this in. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes, Joe?
Recommendations for good ways to keep up with, like when Drupal 8.2 comes out or when 8.1 came out, to keep up with like what are, you just gave an awesome list of changes, but like how do you,
For this question is not a plan, I did not prompt Joe to ask. So what Joe asked is, what's a good way to keep on track of when a new release is coming out, what updates might be in it, and so forth. One great way to keep updated, is this working? Yes. So groups.drupal.org/core is the core release announcements group. If you're interested in following what's happening in Drupal core, when the new releases are coming out, important announcements about changes that might be made in the core release, you can follow this group. Like so everything on groups.drupal.org, there's an RSS feed, there's an organics group. You can get email notifications if you like, you can turn them off if you hate them. This is a really great resource to keep abreast of what's happening in the project. Super important announcements are also posted to the Drupal.org front page and also to Drupal Planet. So you can follow the Drupal core Twitter account, show you that too, which is also auto tweets everything that's posted to that group. Get that right here. Ooh, D-Twitter is not a thing. Someone quick, reserve that domain name. So you can see, just follow that Twitter account if that's your preferred way of consuming news, and you'll get all of the exciting updates about new features that are coming, sort of like unusual changes that might not make updating to the minor version very safe. And then when we do create a release, we also try to make sure that the release notes have a summary of important like internal API changes, etc. If you're someone who does a lot of custom model development or maintains a contributed project, another resource, this is less relevant to the average site owner, but a resource for model developers. This is fun to see if I can actually type the address correctly without looking at my screen. So drupal.org/list-changes/Drupal is a page of what we call change records. Every time we make an important internal change to Drupal APIs, or we make a new addition that's useful for developers to know about, it gets a change record on this site. I'll scroll down here, you can see it has a list of things up. Pretty much every week there's announcements coming out, and these are very in-the-weeds, specific detail things, but if you are someone who does maintain a module, this is very useful information to have. If something changes and you're like, why did that happen? You can search and find out about it. So let's say testing. Say something with, you have an automated testing suite for your module, and something that changes and you don't know why, you could then search for testing, and then you get a list of the change records relevant to automated testing. For example, one of the cool features that was added in Drupal 8.1 is we finally provided an API core for testing JavaScript. Turns out websites in 2016 have JavaScript, but until recently, Drupal core was not able to provide automated testing coverage for that JavaScript. We do now. Most JavaScript interactions in core don't have tests yet, but they are being added, so there are a few examples if you're interested in writing them that you can check out and use Drupal core. And there will be more. Those are a few awesome resources. Thank you, Joe, for the very relevant question. Anyone else have any questions? I think I'm coming up on the end of my time slot here, so. All right, if there are no other questions, thank you for coming, and I apologize for the creaky voice surrounding this. If you have any questions, you can, tweet at me on Twitter. And for those of you who are evaluating Drupal, I hope I can spare you. Thank you.